Today, we're going to talk to David Grizzle, Emergency Manager of Norman, Oklahoma, and the architect, I'd even say mastermind, of the Oklahoma Youth Preparedness Camp system. He's worked with state program managers there in Oklahoma to find the most effective ways to run these camps, and they've taken off across the state and getting more and more successful. He's willing to share, and he's going to do it today here on the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. Welcome to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. I'm your host, Bill Bischoff, FEMA Region 6 Community Preparedness Officer, and we'll be talking about community preparedness issues that affect Region 6 states of Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and the tribal nations therein. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast, David Grizzle. It is so good to have you here. You and I have worked together for years and years. You out of Norman Emergency Management there in Oklahoma, but I first met you or heard of you. You're one of those heard of guys, the legend, because I heard of you many times before I met you. And one of my first times I heard about you was from James LeClaire, our partner over there in Otto, Missouri. And he goes, yeah, man, this guy, Grizzly, came to help and got me squared away on CERT in the Red Rock area for the Otto, Missouri, along with several other tribal nations. And since then, I'd found you in the world of youth preparedness. And now I just consider you the partner that you are, because you've been on our Community Preparedness Working Group, Region 6 Community Preparedness Working Group, and just you know, you're one of those hands that can do anything and has done everything and is able to share with everybody. So welcome to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. It's good to have you here.
Well, thank you, Bill. I enjoyed doing this and appreciate your kind words.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I guess where I'd like to focus today is I met you through Roxy Beal, who I think brought you on to the Community Preparedness Working Group back in the day when she was at Oklahoma Homeland Security. And then the next thing I know, you're kind of being pulled in to head up the youth preparedness side of the house with the youth preparedness camps. Can you tell me how that came about and kind of what your philosophy is on it?
Well, just a little back history. We started the Citizens Corps and CERT programs here around 2004, 2005, and I've been one of the longest active team or participants since in Oklahoma. And Roxy called me one day and was telling me about the youth camp going on in Texas that they've held several years, and asked if I'd be interested in going down and observing to see whether or not we could bring it back to Oklahoma. And I did, and we went down, had a wonderful time watching the camp, asked a million questions about administration, how they did things, background checks, who are the eligible applicants, got to see some of the activities the kids were doing. We were there when they did a nighttime kind of a search and rescue. A lot of the team building activities were going on early in the day, and it just kind of got me excited, and it looked like something that we ought to be doing in Oklahoma. So we got all their curriculum and stole it like we normally should do. Come back and we put the Oklahoma brand on it, and started the coordination for a camp here in Oklahoma. The University of Northeastern Oklahoma State University was the first host, and that's in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And the emergency manager up there, Andy, and I apologize, can't remember her last name.
I got it, Andy Smith. Yeah, now she's with. She has since moved on to Cherokee Nation, is doing great things there.
Well, she jumped in there as the host and opened a lot of doors for us. It took about a year of solid coordination of identifying people who would be interested, wanting to be part of the cadre, who just wanted to be a resource. A lot of conversations about the what if and the what for, and dealing with you can't do that because of the liabilities, and on and on and on, and we finally put together a very good team, and went up and performed our first camp. And it may be cliche to say, but I promise you that there won't ever be another one like that. It went off very well. We had a lot of adult and teamwork, professionalism. Yeah, I just can't say how much I appreciated everybody that participated in that. And what my role was with Roxy was to get the coordination done, to put together the schedules, to get the people selected who was going to instruct what sessions, who had what to offer, and then capitalize on those strengths and put them to work.
And I remember that and thinking, my gosh, this kind of makes me think of the Olympics, the dream teams, because you had all these kind of superstars in their own rights from various communities across the state. I just was blown away by the gifts that these folks brought together. And then the other side of that was they all had a vision, and you had to kind of be the glue to get that vision across the line. So it was tremendous to watch, I can tell you.
Very much so, and maintaining the parameters for the instructors, trying to make sure that we focused on the basic CERT curriculum, and then we supplemented that curriculum with other activities and other things and experience from the instructors to make it as robust as possible. To include, I have a personal friend from my military days that takes on the persona of Jeremiah Johnson, and his nickname was the Liver Eater.
Liver Eater,
He showed up in full frontier regalia, and he was a part of the robustness, and the kids just ate it up.
I remember spending about an hour getting to visit. His name Jim Wynn, is that right?
Jim Quinn, and just recently, last year he was elected as the state president of the Oklahoma American Legion. And he's since left that office, but he's still very functional in the American Legion. Right. And again, he's a Vietnam veteran, good friend of mine, served with him for years. And the American Legion in Oklahoma conducts a boys' state up in northeastern Oklahoma, and a lot of similar venues that they do are they call them pillars. The pillars of what they promote are a lot of what we promote in CERT. The preparedness and the readiness and so forth.
I thought he brought a great contribution, and that you two worked together, particularly on another. Every camp has its flair, and one of the things that you guys brought that year was the flag retirement ceremony. And I know it's since been brought back, but many of the people, including me, that was my first time to see that. And it was very moving, and just that's that extra that you get, and there was a lot of extras that you got out of that one. So I believe just when you look back at that first one, and then where you've gone since then, what are the parts of the camps that you think offer the most to the kids?
In terms of the curriculum, I've always focused on the most effectiveness part of the curriculum, in my opinion, is the medical sections, and any of the sections that puts hands-on activities. I personally focus on teaching cribbing and making them understand the physics of how to move things, simply because during times of disaster or just day-to-day living, if they know how to move things with a fulcrum, life becomes much easier. The same way with the medical, if they know how to do simple, basic medical stuff, then it gains the confidence that they can address small wounds. There's a lot of times that people get trained to be able to do things, but when it comes down to it and the blood is flowing, they don't have the ability to actually carry through with it. And this program, we make it robust as possible with as much training material as we can and some pretty good graphics to make them understand there's a difference between sitting next to your buddy and putting on a dry patch and wrapping it up and sitting next to your buddy who's got a 6-inch splinter of wood coming out of his arm and there's blood flowing everywhere. And we give them that confidence, not only the ability to learn to do something, but the ability to do something with that training. And I think that's very important.
Right. And I've got to say, going back to your earlier comment about taking it out of Texas, I've got to give credit where credit's due. The whole youth preparedness camp program that spread to Oklahoma, Arkansas, New Mexico, Louisiana, it's been that thing that Texas School Safety Center started all those years ago. So Joe McKenna, Ruby Mosley, back in the day, I can't say enough about how far their work, Scott Paul, I think, was a big part of that then. That's all in the DNA across the Region 6 states, and particularly there in Oklahoma, and is just being crafted and built into what Oklahoma needs. And it's your influence and other folks as you move along. I was going to say, not only are you seeing the first aid and the cribbing and being able to do the carries and the what you need to know when things go badly, but what are you seeing in terms of character development? Because that seems to be a huge part of it. I know that I witnessed parents coming in and feeling like their kids had grown exponentially in their abilities to relate to other kids and to them after these camps. What's your experience there?
Well, that's very true. And especially in today's times where most kids in the age group we're talking about, we originally focused on junior, senior high school people going to be junior, senior, had graduated, want to come back and do the course. That gap of eligible participants, that they do this. It's all about this. And once you break them from that cycle and you put something in their hands, it gets their attention. And the next thing that you do when you train or instruct preparedness activities such as medical, and you explain to them, it's not just putting a patch on somebody's arm, it's the possibility of saving a life one day. It kind of gets their attention. And then what you see is you see even the member of the class that is probably the least one that you might think can do something will come out of their shell. They will come out and they will participate. And then the other side, what you have is when you have good students, what you'll see is the stronger ones bringing the weaker ones along. And in every class we've had, we've seen that. We've seen students who come to class and they're shy, they're introvert, they stay away from everybody. And once we start configuring teams and conducting team activities where they have to participate for the benefit of the whole team, and they start understanding this teamwork stuff, and then it becomes not all about this right here.
Yeah.
And then you also start seeing those teams eating together in the lunchroom or supper, or they're hanging out, or you start seeing them hand each other their telephones and exchanging phone numbers and contact information, just like we do when we go to conferencing and things. Sure. That's the time to exchange business cards. And I, in my role as a coordinator, have a tendency to philosophize things when I stand up in front of the students, and I'll come up and I'll say, don't forget this. Don't ever forget who you meet here. You will never know what their life and future brings, that at one day they could be in a position to help you with whatever you're doing, or they could be very successful and you need a guest speaker so you can invite them in. You just never know. One quote I said during the first class was, you never know who you meet until you know.
Right. I'm recalling meeting your grandson there, and you and I have spoken about this several times. So if either one of us gets teared up, we'll get through it quickly. But Tell me the effects that this training had on your grandson, if you don't mind.
Well, again, I mentioned Introverse. My grandson is on the autistic scale, and he's a big kid. He just turned 18. He's 6'2", 325 pounds.
Good size fella.
Any defensive coach would love to have him.
Yeah.
But it's simply not. That's just not in his world. Very much an introvert. When he went through the first class, he was one of the younger ones, but he was a big kid again. And that was the first time that he had to address being out of his comfort zone. He had to sleep with other people, had to eat with other people, had to associate with other people. And for him to be around that environment was very painful for him. But we do an icebreaker activity where what you do is you interview your partner. You interview the guy sitting next to you, guy or girl sitting next to you. Take notes, and then you have to stand up and introduce the other individual. Normally, when people are doing introductions in a class, you stand up, tell all about yourself and so forth. In this case, the other person introduces you based on your conversation. And for him to stand up and introduce the young man he was with and talk about him was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember him sticking out his hand and shaking hands with me, and it was, and I remember looking at you and realizing this was something that was pretty new. So it sounds like it's stayed with him because you've since seen him kind of perform a little bit of what he learned.
Yes. The other issue is one of the team building activities is to take cups or straws or anything you can build with and design something. And what they're going for is who can build the highest tower, whatever the activity is, build the highest tower with the most stability and the best design. And when they did that, Zachary's design won. And back then we had quite a number of donors who provided all kinds of neat little items. Well, his design won, so he won his team additional backpacks. And boy, those moments of success, whether they're autistic or not,
right?
Little moments of success is a game changer.
That's building blocks right there for the rest of your life. Yeah.
And what you referred to is my grandson's very literal. So as you go through the medical, you go through triage, you know how to treat, you know how to assess, you know how to look and make a quick decision whether we can handle it or I need to get help. They were spending a weekend with us, my wife and I at home, and my wife and I were out and come back in. And apparently my younger granddaughter, Zachary's sister, was roughhousing and stuff and had fallen, hitting her head. And she come running and telling us about it. Well, so Zachary, why didn't you call us? We could have come back. And he goes, I've been through medical. I know how to do triage. There was nothing broken or bleeding. She was just fine. So it stays with them, even in the smallest amount.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because that's who you want near you when something goes badly. The ones that it stays with, and it stays with him. It's going to be there the rest of his life. That's fantastic. That's a gift. That's a gift that you were able to give, and the rest of us are able to enjoy along with Zachary. Tell me about the camps since then. Has it changed in any major way, or has it progressed in a way that you didn't see? And what's your involvement to this day?
Well, again, the 2019 camp was our first camp, very robust. We come off that camp high as a kite, and the cadre was pumped, and we were already quarter way through the programming of the 2020 camp. And we still had retained a lot of sponsors, a lot of staff, and then we fell right in the middle of the pandemic and just kind of popped the balloon. And then that delay through the pandemic just was really, really tough. And how things changed was Roxy, who brought the camps to Oklahoma.
Right.
Did an outstanding job in her position with Homeland Security.
Yeah.
Decided that she was going to move on down the road, and go back to where she grew up, or had
Northeast, New Hampshire seems like, yeah.
Yeah. So she went on back home,
Right.
and then they hired a young lady by the name of Tracy Bender.
Yeah.
And what I've said before is that Roxy's the one that lit the fuse, and Tracy's the one that added the dynamite. Tracy is very outgoing. There's no introvert there. I can assure.
Does not meet a stranger. No.
And she loves to get out and promote. She is formerly of the state Oklahoma Emergency Management Office.
Right.
Oklahoma Emergency Management and Homeland Security were separate at the time. Some states are combined. Currently, they're combined.
Right.
And so Tracy was offered this position, moving from OEM over to Homeland Security, and she took it. And then she just owned the responsibilities of the position, and she took a different view of it, and that view was hit the road, Jack, don't come back. And she started hitting the road and going to the colleges, and rather the original camp was an open-based recruitment, come one, come all type of thing. We had a parameter of an eligible applicant, but we didn't focus on a community, whether that's a neighborhood or whatever. Tracy took it from the perspective of, well, it worked so well at NSU, Northeastern State University. Well, let's just go talk to the rest of the universities. And she did. And she went on a sales tour. And next thing we know, we're in Northeastern State University in Broken Arrow doing a day camp, or in Southeastern Oklahoma State College in Tishomingo during a full camp. We're planning on a camp in the Panhandle University in Oklahoma, way up in the northwest corner. And we're planning on a camp for that for next year already. And the explosion, or the difference, is night and day. What that did for us now is we have a customer. We have a customer that wants our product, and our product is their future students.
Yeah.
So we go to them, and Tracy makes an outstanding sales presentation, and we bring them prospective students. They host the camp, provide all kinds of support stuff, and we provide them an opportunity for a captive audience of around 30, 35 students, for them to come in and solicit to attend their college. And then what has transpired out of that, it started with the day camp in Broken Arrow. The dean there come in, and I don't really know how I got started, but to me it was out of the blue. He came in and made an announcement that come to my school when you graduate high school, and we will give you 4 general elective credit hours. And that's a lot of money. Go to any college and look up how much cost of a credit hour is, and that will tell you what he was just giving to every student.
What they were earning. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Went to Tishomingo, Murry State College. We talked with them, and that dean come in and said, really? Well, I'll do 6 credit hours and I'll make them transferable. So he's saying, just come to college, and we're going to help. We're going to get you off on the right foot, and we're going to reward you for doing that. And we have that same thing happening in the Panhandle. They're looking to see what they can do, and so we have a dynamic there that instead of an open enrollment environment where we're trying to do all the work and we're recruiting the kids and we now have a sponsor, and that sponsor is using their assets. They're using their websites. They're using their recruiting. They're using, in the case of NSU, their alumni association took cash donations for us to buy ancillary items that grant money can't buy, or the state can't buy, such as food and T-shirts, those kind of things. The sponsors and the community come together and help fund. So the dynamic of how to put the camp on changed a little bit, or I should say the venue, how to put the camp on in terms of the curriculum. We played with the curriculum 2 or 3 times. Again, the full setting. We did 2 full camps at NSU Tahlequah and 1 day camp in Broken Arrow, and you're right. It seems like the dynamic changes a little bit because one of the aspects that Texas did that we did in our first camp was they had a community planning course integrated into the CERT course. And how they did that was they did a little bit of the CERT class, and then they brought that into the community planning course, and they took, how are we going to introduce CERT into our community? This section of it, and then this section of it. And the goal at the end of the camp was for the teams to be able to back brief the cadre on how they were going to take the program and present it to their leadership, that in their community, being their high school, their church, their local municipality, whatever it is. And as the experienced mentors that we have and the other emergency managers from around the state to participate, they can help guide those kids to understanding how to enter that world somewhat political and being able to address new things to communities. That was the ultimate goal in the first couple of camps. It's kind of changed since then. We modified we found at Murry State that some of who needed the community planning was the adults, not necessarily the students. So we did a modification of the community planning course in with adults rather than the students. The other thing that helped make the camps different is the areas of the state offer different opportunities. Murry State, southwest or southeast, south central, apologize guys, south central, very small area in terms of population in the towns, a lot of rural, a lot of country, and most of the time when you call those guys for help, they say, what can I do? They don't say, I can't do that because of the liability. And we had volunteer firefighter organizations coming literally out of the woodwork, help participate. Again, that hands-on, doing the fire extinguisher training properly, getting those guys involved. We had a air medvac offered to land a helicopter and let them crawl all over a helicopter. We find in different venues of the state, more jurisdictions are willing to provide more resources. All of that comes together to make a more robust environment in the short time that we have them. And that's real key, because we find that you're there 24/7 and you need to make those days robust.
Yeah.
Because you do have a bunch of teenagers. Sometimes they think that they're going to go do things that they shouldn't be doing, which we had that opportunity in the second Tahlequah camp. And you just need to make sure that you fill their day.
Absolutely.
So their nights are well spent sleeping,
getting ready for the next day instead of looking for something to entertain. As I remember being a young camper myself, and I would fall into that category. I was the one that you had to watch.
And also with the junior colleges, we're there off season to them during the summer when they're not in class. So the kids that are prospective students have the opportunity to sleep in real dorms, eat their food, see their campus, and experience the whole deal. The Tahlequah, the first Tahlequah, they gave us an entire dorm room as part of the course curriculum for CERT, is to do a final exercise, robust disaster scenario. They gave us an entire floor of a dorm, and we had a team of three women that went in there and pretty well destroyed that dorm floor and made it just amazing for the kids to go through and experience it. Same way at Murry State, they gave us the basement to a housing unit, and the smoke and the screaming and the yelling and the confusion and the lights flashing and
all from the big disaster drills. Yes.
It wakes them up, makes them realize that
it's real deal.
It's real deal.
Yeah. what would you suggest that anyone wanting to undertake what you have undertaken, what do they need to know as they try to put together coordinate a camp? Because that's really what you do. You coordinate.
Oh gosh, as you know, my first pet peeve. Number one, don't let them tell you you can't do that because of liability. That's an excuse. That's somebody simply lazy and don't want to do anything with it. Attack that aggressively. Regardless of where you're at, what state you're in, there are Good Samaritan laws. There's many laws on the books. I'm readily assured, not only state but federal, that will protect for any liability. You can get a sponsor, you can buy a small insurance policy, all this, not really for all that much. Reassure them, find resources. If we're in school, they have full medical clinics. My emergency managers that come, some of them are nurses, some of them EMTs, paramedics, aggressively eliminate the issue of liability and get it out of the just solve the problem right up front. That will open up doors. If you address their concerns and bury it up front, then you can move on down the road. Everything else is it takes a lot of time to make the coordination things happen, make sure the instructors that you choose have the same vision that the organization has. We have a lot of great experience, but sometimes I have to talk to an instructor and say, basic CERT class, not Holocaust survivability, apocalypse now.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to pat left and right and keep them focused. Now, all that stuff can help make the camp real robust after hours in the evening, so forth. Those kinds of things. I just don't know what else to say. I mean, it's really rewarding working with the kids and being in a position to work with so many of my colleagues across the state. It's rewarding for me. It helps my networking, helps my program.
I would say that's a big part of it, though. What you just mentioned is your colleagues across the state, the people that you work with. I think it can be a daunting deal to think about a youth preparedness camp, and you've got to be taking care of the curriculum and the care of these up to 40 campers at any given time. You don't go into it alone. You end up with recruiting so many great instructors, and that I'd say that's a key, isn't it?
Oh, it is. If you don't have that relationship and that familiarity with who you're working with, just like any other real job, you've got to build that trust, and you've got to build that. You've got to be open and honest, and you've got to say, here's the goal, here's the vision. In ICS world, incident command, you got to have that common operating picture, and everybody has to come to the table understanding that is the purpose. And if they want to do something different, there's nothing wrong with going on down the road and doing your own program. But this is whatever the focus is, whatever the key coordinator, the key group decides on, then that's the focus, and try to keep everybody, unless some significant change happens, to keep everybody motivated and moving on down the road, keep everything documented, keep everything informed, and the open flow of communication. We had one situation where there was a complaint because everything just keeps changing. And again, I kind of the guy in the background, and I set the instructor down and I hold up the training schedule, and it's like, tell me what changed. Tell me what changed on here that you didn't know about.
Yeah. Well, David, when we talk about Tracy and Roxy, we're talking about these folks that work for the state and look at the world through the state perspective. You being at the city of Norman, you're a city asset that has been lent out, thankfully, to the rest of us, or you have made sure that the rest of us have had your contributions. Does the city of Norman, your folks there, are they big backers of what you do?
Since being employed by the city of Norman, I had 3 different supervisors, and all 3 of them, being the fire chief, have all very well supported me. There's been a couple of times my current supervisor, fire chief, when he came into the position was just before our very first camp, and he had a lot of concerns, and rightly so. And it was a matter of sitting down and educating him on the process and what all has taken place, and the liability and the coverage and how we handled everything, and basically putting him at somewhat ease. And then once he has seen the impact of what we are doing in this program, he's felt more and more comfortable over the years. By doing this, it helps. I mentioned earlier about the networking. We had a tornado here this last February 23. It turned out to be a small tornado. But in Oklahoma, we have that Oklahoma standard about mutual aid, mutual support. And when I need help from my partners and my neighbors, they usually come and we reciprocate. It's no difference than fire or police going on a mutual aid call. It's just in a different territory or jurisdiction. So we're across the board, we're supported pretty well. I've seen, and fortunately, I'm not required to take leave. My boss supports me fully. I use city assets, all of the, and in reality, all of the stuff that I have, I've acquired through grants, through Citizens Corps and Homeland Security programs. So it's using the equipment that we acquired in the grants for the purposes we said we were going to use it for. And that helps. Across the state, I've seen other emergency managers be supported as well. I know some of them, they are allowed to take leave. They're not prevented from participating, but they were required to take leave. And that's unfortunate. I feel that the jurisdictions should support it. It's part of the emergency management's role as community preparedness. And by it's kind of the same thing as going to a workshop or a convention. Anytime you go and participate in an opportunity like this, you bring home support and ideas and new contacts and new resources. So it's worked out well. I've just, in my role here, I've been fortunate, humbly, so that I've been able to do a lot of things that some of the other jurisdictions don't get to do.
Right. But let me ask you about vision going forward. I know it's been difficult in other states to keep the camps going. Particularly with the pandemic, there was a big slowdown. It seems like y'all came out of the pandemic and just put another load of the barrel and went. So do you see more camps coming in the future in various parts of the state, as many parts as you can get them in, or do you eventually hope to transition into the schools? Because I think that's kind of how they've done in Arkansas. They had some success, and then now they're kind of focusing more on the schools with the hopes that the folks already teaching might take that curriculum and go further with it. What do you see down the road for you and yours?
Well, I think that really goes according to who's driving the train. And right now that's Tracy. Right. And Tracy has gone down a successful path going to the junior colleges. We're scheduling repeat classes in those colleges. It wasn't a one and done deal.
Right.
We've already got dates on the calendar to go back to those schools. So for the immediate future, I believe that's where it's going to go. I think that that's probably a more successful path for us, because it does. Again, you've got to address those liability issues. You got to meet them head on. And at the high school level, the schools are very challenged these days, and with the requirements, and they have I don't know what it is, 10 or 12 drills and exercises and tornadoes and active shooters, and to come along and try and introduce this in some of the high schools, it's just it will take some time. It will take some communication. One of the schools. We didn't talk about Owasso and Shannon up there, but I know
Yeah,
that
Shannon Chatwood. Yeah.
and
Super
she
cool.
has a high school team that supports the high school during those drills and those activities. They use those kids to do that administrative actions of those required drills, and it works out quite well for them. Now, I think that's what some of the superintendents are missing in the schools, is the understanding of how this is a positive. This is a resource for your school. And again, it builds that citizenship. It builds that community. Back in the day, Captain School Safety Patrol.
Sure.
You know, they don't do safety patrols anymore. But at the same time, if you take those kids that are interested in preparedness or municipal activities or political careers or those kind of things, want to be in the fire department or police department, and you give them the opportunity to be exposed early, now you're talking about helping them develop careers. And in the hometown situation, I know a lot of small towns where, Oklahoma, I think across the country, fire departments are like 80-something% volunteer. And you have the opportunity to enhance your youth to stay in your town through programs like this, or they're going to be given that opportunity somewhere else. So getting this introduced into the high schools is an excellent way to get your up and coming next leaders of your community involved in your community. And here we have several council people that would love to come and participate at the high school level and be a part of it. So I would like to see us get there. It may be a while, but I think that for us, I think Tracy has done an outstanding job of working down the path she's working down. It's been successful, and it's going to be a repeat performance in some of the schools. And I think that's that's where we are right now.
I love it. I love it. Do you have a part of the state that you've got in mind down the road, or is that the conversation you and Tracy will be having?
Well, the Panhandle is going to be it's 5 hours for me. A couple of our instructors, again, from the South Central part, 8-hour drive just to get there. So, it's a little further distance, resourcing, hauling equipment, and those kind of things. The challenge there, if you pull out the map, the United States map, Oklahoma is one of 5 states. It's Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas, all border each other right there. Panhandle State University is an older school, originated in the early 60s, if I remember reading right up there. But they've got some fantastic facilities, just a gorgeous place. So we're not just trying to recruit from that area in Guyman, Oklahoma. We're literally going across to 5 different states and try to recruit the students that possibly would go to Panhandle State University in Guyman, Oklahoma. So that's going to be a big challenge, getting across 5 different states and getting the slots filled. And I have no doubt we'll do it.
I have no doubt either. Well, David, I've got to say thank you so much for what you've done, what you continue to do, what you're going to do in the future, and the fact that every which direction I look out, you've done something there, and it's influenced and impacted others for the betterment of all. Thank you for what you brought to the Region 6 Community Preparedness Working Group program, for the Youth Preparedness program, and then, of course, what you've done in Oklahoma. Magnificent. I'm thankful that you're my partner, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
That about does it for this episode of the #R6 Prepares podcast. Please give us a like on our YouTube channel and subscribe there if you will. And likewise, please follow us at #R6 Prepares on Twitter. Take care of you and yours, and we'll talk to you next time.